From time to time, I've received calls and mail from American servicemen returning from abroad who said, hey, do you know Raymond Burr? And of course, the honest answer is no, only as you do, as Perry Mason and a fine performer on television, and years ago, of course, on radio and in films. Raymond Burr has just returned home, though he feels very much at home, I'm sure, on this side of the Pacific or that. Raymond Burr is one of the people who remembers what's happening out in other parts of the world and goes there to find out for himself and bring a bit of the United States to American boys in uniform. Welcome home, Raymond Burr.
Well, thank you, Michael Jackson.
I remember seeing last year the USO advertisement saying, does anybody know I'm here? Do you remember that one of the lone soldier way out in some foreign field looking extremely lost? And the caption simply, does anybody know I'm here? Do you think the Americans at home know really what is going on abroad?
Well, I think they know a good deal of what is going on abroad. Certainly in the last few years, and lately, of course, more about Vietnam and those areas, because it's been hitting the front pages more, and there's more being printed about it.
Now, let's start with your most recent trip to Vietnam. What takes you out there? How do you organize it? And when you do get out there, what do you do?
Well, I'm usually asked by the Defense Department to go. This has been the fourth trip in 18 months,
Wow.
Michael. And it's been a departure these last four trips. I've hit also areas on a couple of them, such as Korea and Okinawa, northern part of Japan.
But you're no stranger to Korea.
No, this last Christmas was my 11th trip over there, so I've gotten to know the country pretty well as far as South Korea is concerned. A departure's been in the... I've usually taken shows overseas before of a variety nature, and this time I just went alone. Because the areas we were getting into and the men we were to see were in very small groups, and a show wasn't possible in those areas from a standpoint of transportation or facilities. Different places like missile sites and radar sites and so forth that are usually on tops of mountains or hills or in isolated spots. And you have men there, small groups, sometimes 25, sometimes as much as 100, but that's about the limit of them.
It's, I imagine, a pretty scary sort of proposition these days.
Well, it's scary if you allow it to be scary. Walking across Sunset Boulevard can be scary, too, in certain times.
Yes, but they aren't actually aiming at you.
Well, that, by and large, is mostly in Vietnam, although there are a lot of guns in the North Korean section that are aimed constantly at those people in South Korea.
All right, so you're in South Vietnam. You get to a small area where there are 25 American boys. Do they look younger than they did in the Korean War? Do they look any different?
Well, there's a great deal of difference because there's not, haven't been, up to the present time, as many of them over there, of course. And, for instance, last May we had 15,000 men there. I met 13,000 of those 15,000. They didn't look as young as they did in Korea because there were more youngsters over there at that time.
Yes.
We have, by and large, for a long time, have had a preponderance almost of officers and non-commissioned officers.
And the special forces?
As a group, you'd find captains and majors and sergeants, a great many, because they were all specialists and had special training. Consequently, you didn't find, I think, almost at one time there were more officers than enlisted men over there.
I see. At one time we had 12 generals, I believe, and of course they have to have many officers around them too. Now, when you get to a group of American men, how do you entertain them? What do you do?
I don't do any entertaining on these last few trips, or it doesn't fall into the classic sense of entertainment. Yes. It's just a visit from somebody at home, that's all. And you chat about whatever they want to chat about or whatever you want to chat about.
Everything from the Mets to Smog, I suppose.
That's quite right.
What normally comes up in conversation? You'll meet a guy. Is there anything that you can almost bank, rest assured on, will come up in conversation?
Yes, usually they inquire, one of the first questions is, they're very intensely interested in the effort over there and what they're doing and the kind of job they're doing. Usually find that one of the first questions, the first question is, why didn't you bring Della? Meaning, of course, Barbara Hale.
Yes.
And that's actually the first question. And I've it's pretty hard not to find an answer, the proper answer to that. The second question usually is, what do the folks back home think, or do they know what we're doing over here, or do they know, how much do they know about Vietnam? And
How do you answer that one?
well, that's a large question, and it needs a large answer, sometimes more than I've been able to really give. I answer in the fact that yes, those that certainly who are close to them or from their own town or city usually know, because it takes that kind of contact before people become intensely interested, really. When we had Korea, the war there, when we had the Second World War, we had a great number of men in uniform in one particular area, and that spread it out across the country pretty well, in every town and city across this country.
I'd like to speak about the men and their morale in just 1 minute, if you could hold.
Right.
I'm Michael Jackson on KNX. Our guest star is Raymond Burr. If you care to speak with him yourself, the phone number, Hollywood 1-9911.
Big, safe, friendly American Savings does it again. Now, American Savings pays you more.
Interest computed daily on funds held till quarter's end. Interest compounded daily. That's interest earned on interest. Interest paid daily till date of withdrawal on funds held for 6 months or more.
This means more profit, more convenience for American savers. And no matter how you figure it, nobody pays more at 4.85% current annual.
At American Savings, why take less?
Join the big parade to big, safe, friendly American Savings and Loan Association, a national giant over 700 million strong.
A friendly neighbor to over 5 million Southern Californians.
Visit us during open house. Receive a free, magnificent folio of photographs of Yosemite Valley, suitable for framing, created by America's greatest living outdoor photographer, Ansel Adams. Free refreshments, too, at all 17 offices of American Savings. Visit us right away.
Morale in Vietnam. We're speaking with Raymond Burr. I've just handed them a copy of tomorrow morning's newspaper, and that headline evoked quite a reaction from you, I notice. That's Da Nang base. Do you know it well?
Yes, I've been there on many more than one occasions. One of my best friends is a sergeant major in the Da Nang area, Sergeant Major Hoover over there, and one of these days I hope to get him on your show, Michael.
I'd like very much to.
He's quite a man.
Should we phone him there? We phone from time to Vietnam.
Yes, it's a little difficult to get through to Da Nang. It goes through about 8 different major switchboards.
We get through to Morley Safer in Saigon from time to time and get a fascinating story. He says he can't get to Da Nang, so you have a privileged sanctuary there or something. What sort of morale is there amongst the men?
Oh, excellent. I think it took a downward swing a little bit around last Christmas time from the 2 previous trips, but this time, and times previously, actually, the morale, considering the very adverse conditions under which our men are doing their job over there, the morale has been more than excellent. The best I've ever seen it in any area where we're engaged in either an advisory capacity or a military capacity.
Have you seen many of those who have been victims of the war? By that I mean the American soldiers who have been shot.
Well, I've been to all of the hospitals there, and on this trip, for instance, I stopped at the hospital in the Philippines at Clark Air Force
Yes.
Base, and at Tripler Army Hospital in Honolulu coming back. And so I see those people who have been evacuated from Vietnam, perhaps again, and then of course they're sent on home if they're need further medical treatment.
I just wonder how a man who's been shot up, how he reacts and how his morale can be reestablished, whether he thinks he's given it all for nothing, or does he know it's worth it?
Well, I think their morale, even in that area, is I've seen a great many men on the trips I've been who have been wounded and have gone back to duty, or men who have been wounded, come back to the United States on another assignment, and then have requested to go back overseas again to Vietnam.
Let's take some phone calls now, if you may.
Very well.
Hello.
Yes.
Would you care to speak with Raymond Burr?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Raymond? Hello.
Yes.
This is Richard Miller. I'm very interested in the subject of the Vietnam situation because I have a brother in the Da Nang area. He doesn't say too much in his letters, he says that all the news that we might get would be in the papers, and we wonder whether the news is truly amplified as such, or whether he's limited in saying what he can through the mails.
Are you asking whether his mail is censored?
Yes. Well, no, I mean to say whether the truth in the papers in the Denang area is what it is, what they say in the papers, or why he doesn't seem to tell us very much on what's going on.
Well, all the men that are there are working under certain security rules. I would say that were mail to go out and that mail ever to fall in the hands of the other side, that if the mail were full of information, it could be an adverse situation for us. I think that the news that comes from Saigon and from different areas in Vietnam is truthful, is honest.
And wouldn't the press correspondent necessarily be able to get a broader scope of news than one man doing one job at one Air Force base?
That's probably correct. However, Mr. Miller was just asking about the Da Nang area rather than the whole of Vietnam. Yeah. And I have visited there now 3 times. I think the news that comes from there is accurate and is best told by the newspapers rather than the individuals over there.
Okay, sir?
Well, I was just wondering that I had noticed in the news that they were limited in their scope of the news medium. I mean, that they couldn't say too much because of the censorship that they were having there. And it seemed to me that...
By the way, I'd take issue with that. There's no definite censorship on what the American boys write to their families.
No, I don't mean to say that. I may be missing saying...
Uh-huh.
But I was just wondering that he seems to think that all the information is coming through the news medium, and I was just wondering.
So, in other words, let me see if I understand you, Mr. Miller, because there are so many calls. You're not saying that this young man that writes to you claims that the news is inaccurate. You're just saying that from the difference between that which you read and that which he writes, you assume that one of the two is not giving an accurate picture.
Correct.
Then I would go back to my initial statement that he's one man doing one job at one place, therefore wouldn't know the overall picture, even of that one place.
I see.
Okay?
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good night, sir. Hollywood 19911. Raymond Burr is our guest. I'm Michael Jackson on KNX. Hello.
Good evening, Michael. Bunny Watson here.
Hello, Mrs. Watson.
I think you're a little Dickens and just terrific.
Oh.
May I please speak to Mr. Burr?
Go ahead, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Burr.
Good evening, Ms. Watson.
I want to thank you for going to visit our boys overseas and helping their morale. Secondly, I would like to say I have searched many times for your home in Malibu and would like to know about where it is.
Well, I too have searched for it sometimes up there. We are in the fog belt, and it's not always easy to find the turnoff.
Oh, I see.
Let me just say that it's north of Santa Monica, about 20 miles. I'm really not a judge of mileage, but it's north of Santa Monica.
And to the right or left of the highway?
It depends in which direction you're going.
Going north.
Going north, the last time I saw it, it was to the left of the highway.
It was going south. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you and good night.
Good night. I've often wondered what they sold those maps of the stars' homes for. It's for drunk stars, is it, who don't really know where they live? Well, that's where I live. Hollywood 19911. Raymond Burr, the guest. I'm Michael Jackson on KNX. Hello.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Burr.
Good evening.
First, let me say I'm very grateful to God that you're home safe.
Thank you very much.
And it's a wonderful thing you've done for the boys. May I ask you if you went into the interior where there's new hospitals being built up? I have a cousin that just went over with a group of Catholic nurses from one of the Catholic hospitals to help with the wounded and the care of some of the children that have been orphaned, and I wondered if you'd gone into the interior where those hospitals are being put up.
Well, I hit 147 different places in the time I was there during the last trip and saw the interior, most certainly. I'm not sure I saw the exact hospital that you mentioned.
I saw one on television that was put up rather crudely, but it was well equipped inside.
Well, most of the hospitals in the area now are rather crude as far as exterior is concerned. Most of the Vietnamese hospitals are rather crude outside of Saigon or one or two other cities. But by and large, they are staffed very well. Today's situation, they are staffed very well.
May I ask you one thing? Do you know if they're asking for any plasma or anything?
I don't think there's any terrific need for that at the present time. I think they have that situation under control.
Well, I hope so, because I have just given blood in case somebody needs it. I can't give it too often.
Well, I would, for one, thank you very much for that, because it's needed constantly in many places in the world, and would certainly be, I would certainly hope that more people would do that at all times.
Well, again, may I thank you and thank God for your services.
Thank you very much.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night.
It's 5 minutes before 8 o'clock. I'm Michael Jackson on KNX. By the way, Mr. Burr, you really have a stake out there, don't you? You have children in that part of the world.
Well, same as you, Michael. I have, under the foster parents plan, now 4 children in Vietnam.
Have you seen your own?
Oh, yes. We went on a shopping trip the last day I was there, and I was very fortunate. One of the little girls is from Nha Trang, where one of our hospitals is, in the Second Corps area over there and on the seacoast. And for a while I thought I wasn't going to see her because transportation is difficult, and you just can't say, well, she can come on a train or a plane, because most of everything now is government transportation. But they were able to get her down. She spent 4 days and lived. One of the boys that is with the care mission over there has 2 little adopted boys of his own, so she stayed with them because I was still out on the road, so to speak. And we did have 2 days together, one evening and the next day shopping, and then she went back home after I left.
And that's a fraction of your very large family.
Well, I have 20 around the world.
That's ridiculous. They'll all turn up one day trying to get into Hollywood.
I hope so. I hope so.
What is the liaison like between, for example, the care people, the forces, Americans generally, and the local populace? Is there much? Is it possible?
Oh, yes. I have been a contributor to CARE for a good many years, and I'm always pretty interested in where the money is going and what it's being spent for, and I most certainly would tell anyone who's interested in contributing at all that the CARE mission around the world does a tremendous, tremendous amount of good. We have, for instance, great needs in Vietnam, a very simple one, just like soap. There are a great many people there in certain groups of the population that had never seen a bar of soap or never seen soap of any kind, had never washed, really, outside of just using what water, canal water or mountain water that there was around. And consequently, sanitary conditions were rather rough, and with the advent of the great groups of Americans coming in, and things like the Care Mission and Catholic relief organizations and Protestant relief organizations, and the foster parents plan.
So it's much more than a war effort.
Oh, yes. Our men over there, the military men, are doing much more than just advising people in a military manner. There was one area I went in where one young fellow, I don't know where he'd gotten it from, because it was in a special forces group, and they were away in an area that was very dangerous. They had 2 Montagnard villages very close to them, and he somehow commandeered a number of bags of cement and helped them build a dam and showed them how to use the dam to store water and use it for shower. At the top of the dam, they had a number of pipes, and there were about 20 really showers coming out of the
They're changing
dam.
all their habits. Now, the Montagnard people, these are the mountain folk.
That's the mountain people that have not gotten along very well with the Vietnamese, or the Vietnamese with them. That situation is changing. They do get along very well with the Americans, and have proved to be both very fine citizens and very fine fighting men as far as the armed forces is concerned.
We're going to have just 5 minutes of news. Could you stay while it's on? Because there are many calls. And
I'd be delighted.
Our guest is Raymond Burr. I'm Michael Jackson on KNX. The phone number, Hollywood 1-9911.
Mark Schilling, if you get past the harem guards, how will you know which wife does the cooking?
Simple, Rosemary. I'll try a little pinch here, a little pinch there.
Mark, stop that.
There's a flavor roundup of favorite Schilling barbecue seasonings now at your store. For fresh chuck wagon flavor, stock up on top-quality Schilling celery, savor, onion, and garlic salts. And there's the all-purpose seasoning salt, season all in the big outdoor thrift size, offering 1/2 more at the regular price.
And when it comes to tea, McCormick tea is the tea that Schilling makes for you.
McCormick tea on a Schilling commercial? Why not? McCormick tea is from Schilling, also from India and Ceylon. Try it.
This is KNX and KNX FM, 1070 Radio in Los Angeles. I'm Michael Jackson, the phone number Hollywood 1-9911. And just a reminder, on July the 4th, it's the old-fashioned KNX July 4th at MacArthur Park. Last year, I believe they had 15,000 turned out for it. Hope you'll be there. All sorts of fine people. Art Linklater, Peggy Lee, many, many more. And I'm looking forward very much indeed to being one of the MCs. Oh, Bill Cosby. You name it, they'll be there. How about a snack right now? Haven't got anything fresh in the house? Well, then you don't have good as gold Peter Pan at your house yet, because with Peter Pan, you have the wonderful peanut butter that's always fresh, always good as gold, fresh and moist, from the top of the jar clear down to the bottom. What's more, Peter Pan is more than just a fine, fresh food. It's a gold mine of protein, good as gold protein that's so digestible, as well as nourishing, your youngsters can eat Peter Pan as a bedtime snack and sleep as soundly as ever. And it's such fun to spread. They can get their own sandwiches easily, and they do. So, for fresh snacks and lunches, any time at all, make sure you've got the peanut butter that's good as gold any time at all. Peter Pan peanut butter. 6 minutes after 8, Michael Jackson on KNX, Hollywood 1-9911. Our guest is Raymond Burr. Mr. Burr, the opening story in the newscast said that the Viet Cong struck using mortars with deadly accuracy. That hardly sounds like a barefoot soldier who's ill-equipped. Do you have respect as a soldier for the Viet Cong?
Oh, I certainly have respect for any guerrilla army, and probably including any kind that we can bring to force. The guerrillas in Korea, the guerrillas in Greece, the guerrillas in certain other parts of the area have been very successful. They live from the land. They know how to do it. I don't think their equipment has been too heavy in the past. Mortars, new kinds of mortars, are very easy to transport around, and they can be also deadly accurate. You can get a team of 3 or 4 men that can slip through a large group of men and fire enough
to be effective
munition of one kind or another to be very effective, and then slip back through the lines.
Are we training a caliber of men to be effectively useful against the guerrilla, do you think?
Well, our caliber of men is pretty good to begin with.
Yes.
And they take to almost any training immediately. It does take some time. We haven't been involved in jungle warfare, the kind of jungle and the kind of warfare that has been in Vietnam, I think, ever before. However, we are learning very rapidly. We are training very rapidly. And there is vast improvement in our military posture, certainly, and it goes along hand in hand with the improvement we've had and the great effort from the civilian standpoint in Vietnam.
I believe the usual ratio, if you wish to defeat or combat the guerrilla force, is 11 regular soldiers to 1 of theirs, and we're doing it with far less than that and inflicting heavier casualties upon them than they ever are upon us.
Well, we've been doing that for some time. We've needed more support over there than what we've been getting by with. Must remember, the Vietnamese have a great will to fight, but they've been fighting this war for a long time, the South Vietnamese, and they are a national group.
Do they have a feeling of nationalism?
Oh, yes, they do. They couldn't have been fighting this long without it.
No. I think in the past, much of their allegiance has been to the hamlet or to the local head rather than to Saigon and a centralized government.
Well, of course, that's changed because a great many of the men that are leading the government now have been changed around from one area to another, so that the people are certainly beginning to learn. It's very difficult in a country that's communication has been difficult in, and there's been no things like newspapers or in great parts of that area.
Is it possible to take this very large battlefield and say it is a beautiful country?
It is a very beautiful country, and probably when peace comes and they have a country of their own, either separated by partition from North Vietnam or connected as one country with North Vietnam, the country is a spectacular one and probably will be one of the garden spots of the world one day. And certainly the lower part of it, southern part of South Vietnam, the Delta area, will be one of the great producing areas of the world. It's very, very rich, and it can grow 3 or 4 crops a year there.
China has heard that.
Yes, I know.
Hollywood 19911, Michael Jackson on KNX. Our guest star is Raymond Burr, and the line is open. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Burr.
Yes?
Since I doubt very much whether any American soldier was unaware of who you were, I'd be very interested to know whether they looked on you with awe. Were they reticent? Were they shy? Were they withdrawn? Were they cynical? Or is Vietnam a great leveler?
Well, I think anywhere in the world where you have a group of military forces is a great leveler when you get a great body of men together. It's been my experience that when I was in uniform and when I was in the Forest Service and the CCCs before that, that you became very well acquainted with the man sleeping next to you or living next to you or fighting next to you. And as far as looking upon me, fortunately, most of the people there that I met were very anxious for news from home. And I was very anxious also to see that they got what news that I could take them.
In other words, it was more that you were just another guy?
Well, you can't be in... I looked just as dirty as they did in some instances and went just as long without a bath in some instances.
I've never seen Perry Mason looking dirty, have you? Thank you very much, ma'am.
Don't destroy the illusion, Mr. Burr.
I won't.
Good night.
Thank you.
Hollywood 19911, Raymond Burr is our guest. The time 11 minutes after 8 o'clock.
You are about to hear excerpts from a tape-recorded interview between Dr. Robert M. Williams, Professor of Business Economics and Statistics, UCLA, and a representative of Crocker Citizens, California's oldest national bank.
Dr. Williams, as a leading economist, is there any advice you can give our listeners that will help them get the most from their income?
I've always tried to be very prudent and tailor my expenditures to my income. I think that's been my number 1 rule. My number 2 rule is to have extra money available.
Do you find that people are saving more than ever before?
It's proved by the very dramatic increase in the size of deposits at commercial banks. I think that people should be prudent, make sure that they're saving something, and I would say the more the better.
Do you have as much as you should in the bank? Stop by soon at the nearest office of Crocker Citizens National Bank, member Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation.
Savings deposits received by Friday, the 9th of July, will earn daily instant interest from July the 1st. Hollywood 19911. Hello.
Oh, Michael,
Yes.
I just want to thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk to these wonderful, wonderful actors.
I think we have to thank them, ma'am.
May I speak to Mr. Burr?
Please go ahead.
Mr. Burr, what is the late picture you are working on, if you are working on any?
I'm coming back. We start again the Perry Mason series next Monday. That will be for another full series, another full season.
Well, I mean in the theater, because due to bad eyes, I don't watch television. I go to the theater, and the screen doesn't seem to bother me like the television does.
It doesn't bother me like the television does either. I haven't done a picture now for some years. I intend to probably do one next year. I'm pretty well tied down with a television program, and I hope one of these days that they'll have a television screen large enough so you can watch it.
Well, let me ask on behalf of this lady. You're doing 5 days a week on Perry Mason?
Well, it's 5 days a week shooting time. We start in July and end the 1st of May.
Well, now, could I ask you how it works? Do you get the script one day and then start rehearsing the next, or how?
Well, you work 5 days, but the shows take 6 or 7 shooting days, mostly 6.
Mr. Burr?
Yes.
Do you sing?
Sing?
sing.
I have been known to sing. I started out in musical comedy in New York City, my first two shows.
I had seen you in some musical show.
Well, it's quite possible. I haven't done any singing for some time. The last time I did any singing was actually 3 years ago on a special I did in Australia.
Getting back to this Vietnam deal, I have a nephew that had pneumonia, and they put him in Hawaii, and I haven't heard from him for a long time. I don't know where he's at. And he still coughs and coughs and coughs. Now, why is it that can't these people that are overlooking these youngsters, can't they tell when they're sick?
Well, you haven't heard from him for a long time, you say, and yet you still say he coughs and coughs and coughs. Now,
I know.
This sounds like Perry Mason. Go on.
When he was visiting us just before they shipped him out, he was just coughing his lungs out.
Well, does he smoke?
He does smoke some. But
Well, I would. That's a possibility, and it's also a possibility that I would say that, by and large, now I've been visiting military hospitals for a long time, and I think they're first rate. Actually, I've been in a couple of them.
yes, but he's in the Marine Corps.
Just as good.
When they're coughing, when the boy coughs all the time, don't they know? Don't they pay no attention to the health and the welfare of these boys?
Yes, I think they pay very good. Their periodic physical examinations, and
all he'd have to do is ask for one, wouldn't he?
All he'd have to do if there's anything specific wrong with him is certainly ask.
Or cough out loud.
Yes.
He had plenty coughing when he was here.
Well, maybe he's allergic to California.
Okay, ma'am.
From Ohio, would he be allergic to? Well, this is wonderful. Before I hang up, Mr. Jackson, who
Yes.
you're going to call next, I was so thrilled because I got to talk to, this is the second one, Jerry Lewis of all people, and now Mr. Burr. Oh, this is...
If you promise not to tell anybody, I believe the next person you may be able to speak with is a man called Bob Hope.
Oh, really? Oh, boy!
Oh, boy. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye. Hollywood, bless her. Hollywood 1-9911. I, act a little blasé about it, but I think I feel inside the way she felt outside.
Ladies and gentlemen, whatever you plan to spend on your next car, see how much more your money will buy in a Cadillac. You'll find a new 1965 Cadillac will reward you with more comfort, luxury, distinction, and engineering advancements than in any other motor car. For a Cadillac is indeed a very economical purchase. From first cost, through economy of operation, to its remarkably high resale value, a Cadillac represents motoring's soundest investment. And the sheer driving pleasure that goes with Cadillac ownership is unequaled in all the world. Visit your authorized Cadillac dealer, who is proud to represent the standard of the world. He will be more than pleased to have you drive a 1965 Cadillac at your earliest convenience. This summer, may I suggest that you go ahead.
All right.
Go Cadillac.
Hollywood 1-9911. Raymond Burr is our guest. I'm Michael Jackson. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
This is Mrs. Nemeth, Mr. Jackson, and may I speak to Raymond Burr?
Go ahead, ma'am.
Rick,
No, ma'am, would you turn off that radio?
just a minute.
You were asked to, weren't you?
Turn it off.
Turn it off, Charlie, for heaven's sake. Charlie's a stinker. He doesn't turn it off. No, I'm sorry, ma'am. We've tried. Honest. Hello.
Hello.
I was mean and nasty there. Yes, ma'am. Can I help you?
Yes, I'd like to speak to Mr. Burr, please.
Go ahead.
Mr. Burr,
Yes?
I had read an article, I believe it was last year, where they were talking about how interested you were in the law, and in view of the fact that you seem to enjoy it so much, I wonder if you had ever thought of going into law practice.
Well, I have enough trouble being an actor.
I know. I know, and we love
She
you.
said, I know. Oh, well.
She's seen some of my old motion pictures. I think I'm very happy where I am, and I'm very much interested in the law and will continue to be so. I've enjoyed all the acquaintances, the many acquaintances that I've made in the legal profession. I think it is probably one of the finest, certainly, professions in the world, and one of the most important in today's times.
Do you think that the television lawyer has affected the everyday real-life lawyer at all in his performance in court?
But I don't think it has.
Ah.
I've been to a few of the courts, and the only time that I have ever been able to understand what the prosecution is saying or what the defendant's attorney is saying is when I listen to Perry Mason.
That's what I mean.
Well, that's very kind of you. Of course, in courtrooms, they don't have the chance to turn the volume up or down sometimes.
I realize that. But in the event that you do ever go into practice, I would certainly like to be one of your clients.
Just go out and commit a crime and he'll defend you.
Yes. I hope that Perry Mason is practicing civil law if that ever happens.
Okay, Mr. Burr.
Thank you.
Bye. Hollywood 1-9911, Michael Jackson on KNX. Raymond Burr is our guest. Just a thought, do you make a point of looking at the old pictures when they're shown on television or purposely avoiding them?
Well, you can't purposely avoid sometimes. You're sometimes caught in a group of people who turn television on just to torture you.
Yes.
And some of the knowing full well what it's going to play. However, it's a good lesson and things not to do over again. In some instances, I'm very happy with most. I did 90 motion pictures between 1946 and 56, so they all couldn't be bad and they all couldn't be good.
Hollywood 1-9911. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I was interested in Mr. Burr's trip over to Vietnam because I was a member of the paratroops during World War II and participated in several of all of the action as far as the combat was concerned. Now, I understand there's many paratroops in Vietnam now, and as such, I'm interested in how their morale is and what they're doing and how they're feeling about the situation over there.
Well, the 173rd just recently went to Vietnam. General Williamson is commanding officer of that group. I visited them in the two areas they're in right outside of the Bien Hoa Air Base. They are guarding now the perimeter to Bien Hoa and also down in a place called Vung Tau, where we have another big a great air complex down there, plus junk fleets and any number of other things. They are also in force down there. And I met, I'd say, maybe 750 of the 173rd group, and I'd say their morale is excellent, and they are already well dug in and in good positions.
How do they manage to enjoy
doing a good job?
Do they relax at all?
Well, there's the usual kind of R&R centers that they manage to make fairly secure, and then after a period of time, people have a chance to go to Hong Kong or to Bangkok in Thailand, which is good. There are wonderful beaches and beach areas on the China Sea.
Right.
Aside from their recreation possibilities, what do they feel they're doing over there?
You've obviously just tuned in. We were discussing this very fully, but...
What was the question again?
Aside from their possibility of doing some recreation, what do they feel they're doing there?
Well,
the airborne brigade.
The airborne...
The paratroopers are concerned.
Feel they're doing just what they were brought over there to do, and that is to contain any enemy action and to prevent it from really reaching any of our air bases that are very necessary for us for the continuance of any supply or any help to the Vietnamese.
I see.
Okay, sir?
They're doing an excellent job, let me say. They've been there a comparatively short length of time, so I'm sure you'll be hearing about and from the 173rd.
We've had enough training as far as the jungle warfare is concerned.
Have they had?
Have we had?
Oh, yes. Yes, we are training many units now. They are well trained in the type of situation they're going to get into. Of course, Vietnam is a very complex place, and the weather conditions over there are very unusual.
They only make it worse.
Well, that monsoon season is on right now.
Yes, monsoon season in the south. The south of South Vietnam is very wet during the summertime.
Maybe
the north part of South Vietnam is very wet during the wintertime. It's just an abrupt change.
Well, just as an aside, I think you've done a great job in going over there to see our boys.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate what they're doing also.
Citizen myself, I appreciate it very much.
By the
Thank
way,
you.
for the gentleman who's calling, as an ex-parachuter, can they drop in monsoon-type weather?
No, I don't think they can.
I hope not.
To an advantage. for us.
That's for sure. Thank you very much indeed, sir.
Thank you.
Good night. Hollywood 1, 9911. This is KNX. It's 24 minutes after 8. Raymond Burr is our guest. I'm Michael Jackson. Hello.
Mr. Jackson, first let me thank you for bringing all these wonderful people to us.
Ma'am, that's the easiest part. It's more difficult for them to get here.
Ghost hunters to diplomats and actors, and really it's a liberal education. And although I am educated, if I weren't, this would help a great deal. Now, may I have a question for Mr.
Go ahead, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Burr?
Yes?
How come you don't run out of scripts? Now, I have watched you for years.
We've been on for years, and sometimes we almost do run out of scripts, but we manage to make the deadline every single time.
Is that genuine?
What's that?
That you've almost run out of scripts?
Oh, yes. You come up to certain deadlines, and everyone connected with our show tries to give the best possible final program to the public, and sometimes we come very close to a script that isn't fully to everyone's satisfaction, and it is written and rewritten and rewritten until it meets the Mr. Gardner's wants and needs, and also comes up to the specifications of Mrs. Jackson, who is our producer, and our two associate producers.
Now let's clarify those names. Is that Gail Patrick?
That's Gail Patrick Jackson, yes.
And is that Earl Stanley Gardner?
Earl Stanley Gardner.
And is he still keeping a finger right in that pie then to watch how it's done?
Oh, yes. He has the final say on every script that comes out.
He's no longer writing them, is he?
Well, he's writing books still, and we use all his books.
I read his books.
Yes.
He was on the program a few weeks ago, and the topic was capital punishment.
With a fresh book every week.
No, he doesn't, but he does supervise and have the final say on all the scripts that come out, and they're done according to Mr. Gardner's desires.
Well, not only have you an excellent cast, but your scripts never get tired.
Well, thank you very much. I hope that
Many radio programs, and you know, you get tired of them after a while.
I hope that remains so, and we're going to try to do everything we can to make it so for the next season.
Because you really bring something fresh into our living room every week.
Well, you're very kind, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night. 26 minutes after 8 o'clock, Hollywood 1, 9911. Our guest is Raymond Burr.
Well, drink Hills Brothers coffee. You just can't beat it. It's got so much flavor you can even reheat it. Now listen to this. Hills Brothers reheats best because the flavor is best. Hills Brothers reheats best because the flavor is best. Well, if you have your druthers, get Hills Brothers. Head for the hills.
Whether you drink coffee for a lift or for relaxation, you want flavor. Good coffee flavor. And Hills Brothers coffee is so perfectly blended for flavor. You can make a pot in the morning, reheat it later in the day, and still enjoy the wonderful flavor of great coffee. Try Hills Brothers coffee. Flavor so unbeatable, it's reheatable.
Hills Brothers reheats best because the flavor is best. Head for the hills.
27 after 8 o'clock. Hollywood 1, 9911. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
I'd like to ask Mr. Burr a question.
Good.
In Rear Window, you were a real heavy, not just in character, but also in weight. And do you have any advice to people that really need to lose weight?
Well, the only advice I have is the same kind of advice that's being given to me from time to time, let me say, and that is moderation in what you do, and that, of course, means moderation in what you eat.
Well, yes. Do you put any faith in these low-carbohydrate diets they have now?
I wouldn't want to say I'm in favor of the kind of exercise that gets you away from the table before you've stayed there too long.
Isn't that the carbohydrate one where you have to take up drinking to fully...
No, you don't have to drink.
Well, they call that one the drinking man's diet, don't they?
Uh-huh.
I haven't really had a chance to go over that one, although I'm familiar with a few
It
others.
sounds like a marvelous gimmick. I bumped into a surgeon a couple of days ago. We were discussing diets, and he said there is only one genuine one, and that is to eat less. The less coal you put in the furnace, the less fire there'll be, or something equally trivial.
More of the right kind of food and less of the kind that is liable to be too calorie
more food
overheavy.
than anywhere in the world, and more diets to stop us from eating it. Strange. Is there a need? Oh, I hope that answers your question, ma'am. Does it?
Well, I figured that was what it was. But, you know, you always hope when you have to cook for a family and you love to eat too, why, you always hope that there's some secret.
Don't test all the food whilst you're cooking.
Also, I'd like to know, do you still have your house in Malibu?
Everyone's after you.
It was there when I left, and I've had no adverse portent or no knowledge of it not being there now. I haven't seen it yet since I got back, so I really wouldn't want to say.
You see, he can't commit himself because Perry Mason would never do so.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. This is KNX and KNX FM 1070 Radio in Los Angeles. Phone number Hollywood 1-9911. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Jackson?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to ask Mr. Burr a question.
Yes.
Mr. Burr, I've been a fan of yours for so long, and I do enjoy the reruns that I'm seeing now. And this is a nervous thing for me to do, is even dial the number and talk to you.
You'll just put your hand through the telephone and hold Mr. Burr's. You'll be all right. We'll be together.
Oh, I thought I was talking to him.
Yes, you are. Yes, you can hold mine as well if you like.
Oh, well, Mr. Burr, I was wondering your opinion or your thoughts on the minority group as actors in serious drama, somewhat on shows like yours. Do you think they're capable, and do you think...
Well, I would presume by minority group are you talking about a group who haven't had any training, or the Negro group, or...
Yes, I mean of the minority race.
Of the minority, well, I don't think the Negro group is a minority race. I have never thought so. We have had, of course, many Negroes on the Perry Mason show. I say many, and I don't know whether you can work in percentages today. There has not been the opportunity for a training ground for as many Negroes as I think there should have been in the past. That is changing now, and of course, I would hope to see that there are many more used. Their abilities are wonderful. I have yet to work with anyone of the Negro race that has not who's had any training at all, any background at all in the theater or in motion pictures or in radio or television, who isn't just first rate at their profession. And I hope to see many, many more of them as soon as we can.
Well, thank you. I hope to see more, too. I saw one beautiful story you had once about
one with the boy in it.
Boy, yeah, two fellows about the same age.
Yes, they're both very, very young boys. And as a matter of fact, the Negro boy was the key to the whole story. It was one of the ones I liked the best of all the ones we've done in 8 years.
And I thought the actor was a very good actor.
Yes, he is a good actor. He's no longer a boy, of course. Now he's almost, I guess he's 19 now.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Mr. Jackson, may I ask you before I go off, because I don't know when I'll get you again.
Okay.
Question, is it all right to ask about a former colleague of yours?
Whatever you like, dear.
Huh?
Yeah, whatever you like.
Well, it's Joe Dolan. I don't know what's happened to him.
He's on television.
Well, I've been looking for him.
Well, I see. Call Channel 5. I'm sure they have the answer for you.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear. Bye. Hollywood 1-9911, Michael Jackson on KNX. Of course, the light-skinned actors had a fantastic advantage when it comes to playing roles for other races. He could always darken his skin with makeup, and this, of course, has happened. He's played Indians, he's played Indian Indians and Red Indians, and at times he's been darkened to play the part even of a Negro, hasn't he?
Oh, yes, and in stage plays, too. However, the things like playing the Moor in Othello and other plays. But now, of course, more people from the Negro race are having the opportunity of the training. I don't think they should just try to go into television just because they're Negro. I think they need the training, as anybody else does, or some background in it.
Of course, there is that one unfortunate, because of the way society is structured at the moment, almost a stigma, and that is, well, he can play Negro roles. It's an unfortunate title, but I'm afraid that's the way it works at the moment.
Well, I think that is changing too. He plays the role of a human being, and it depends on his ability to play that role as to how much of a human being he actually can be. And we're getting away. We have had wonderful opportunities overseas to, in the Far East, to have people from the armed forces actually starting little theater groups, and one very fine fellow by the name of Captain Sims in Vietnam has started the Saigon theater group and Armed Forces theater group over there, and he's doing exceptionally well.
What are they doing?
They're doing a complete cross-section of plays, not just
Could
plays.
I interject for 1 second?
Yes,
I have a
go
news
ahead.
bulletin from London.
Right.
Excuse me. American columnist Robert Rourke died early today in a London hospital. The resident medical officer said the writer had been admitted to the hospital for an undisclosed ailment about 2 days ago. He was aged 49. Speaking of wars, of course, he wrote that beautiful book, didn't he? Something of Value.
Yes.
About East Africa, about Kenya in particular. And if anyone asks the question, having read the book, whether it was true and based upon fact, it was actual and factual. I repeat the bulletin. American columnist Robert Rourke died early today in a London hospital. The resident medical officer said the writer had been admitted to the hospital for an undisclosed ailment about 2 days ago. He was 49 years of age. 25 minutes before 9, phone number Hollywood 1-9911. Raymond Burr is our guest. Now, the gentleman you mentioned.
It's Captain Sims. They do variety shows, and they have done several plays. I wasn't able to see any of them at the time I was there, but he's been very active. He's been, most people have a tour of duty of 1 year over in Vietnam, and he took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and got the group started shortly after he was there, and he's been just a fireball on it. He's doing a very good job in the military, too, but he's fortunate we have him over there.
I have often felt when listening to radios abroad that perhaps the finest voice for America was not necessarily the Voice of America or even Radio Free Europe in Europe, but either the Far Eastern Network or the American Forces Network, which I think gives a fuller cross-section of the American life.
I would say that is probably true. We because of the fact that it's gotten around the world a great deal. There was the Blue Danube network, which was right outside of Germany there, and then Armed Forces in North Africa, Armed Forces FEN, and the Far Eastern Network, and then the AFRS in Korea, and of course all the programs that they're doing here. Those boys have come back from all over the world and have worked right here in Hollywood. We have the Air Force Sergeant Eggers, who's been with Armed Forces Radio, I think most of his military life. I knew him here 10 years ago. I just saw him about 3 weeks ago in Philippines.
Is there any equivalent of Tokyo Rose in this war?
Oh yes, they have Hanoi Hannah.
The Vamp of Savannah.
Yeah. And no, it's a very startling thing to be able to turn a radio on in Vietnam and get Peking or Hanoi. You can get them loud and clear. Sometimes you can't get our own little radio network there, but you certainly get Peking and you certainly get Hanoi.
And is there any set line? Does she sound like an American, or is she very obviously an Oriental?
No, she sounds. She could be almost anything. I detect a little kind of. You'll excuse the phrase.
Yes.
Michael British accent there.
They don't have an accent in Britain.
No, they don't have. Certainly don't have an American accent.
No. I don't want to get rid of you, but when are you going back?
To
Vietnam.
Vietnam. Well, present plans are this next Christmas, of course, and that will be the first opportunity I have.
Sir, I thank you very much on behalf of everyone listening right now for what you are doing. It's very, very necessary, and I hope perhaps it would spur more people in your own profession.
I hope so. There's a great need now. We have a whole different logistic situation militarily. We have great many men in very small numbers and small groups, small units spread out all over the world, and it's very necessary, I think, to get to them as often as we can and with as many people who will perform in small groups and also visit we need people from the sports world and certainly from the entertainment world over there. I hope we can get it started again and get people going over in great numbers.
If I can help to organize, I'd like to. Thank you very much indeed, sir.
You certainly can help, Michael, and I'll be back again to push it along if I can. Thank you very much.
Anytime you like. Thank you, Raymond Burr, and good night, sir.
A pleasure. Good night.
It's 21 minutes before 9. I'm Michael Jackson on KNX. The phone number, Hollywood 1-9911. Now let's pause for a word about the great race.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a special dispatch just handed to us, a great word from the great Leslie, the great hero in the great Warner Brothers motion picture, The Great Race.
I am the great Leslie, arch enemy of that arch fiend, Professor Fate. But fear not, I will beat his infamous design. I will beat him on land, on sea, and in the air. Let him choose his weapon, pistol, sword, or the black-hearted Hannibal 8 he drives. I will best him, because good must always triumph over evil.
Cheer the hero, hiss the villain, save the damsel in distress. Join Tony Curtis, Jack Lemmon, and Natalie Wood in The Great Race from Warner Brothers.
Get your reserve seats now for the exclusive engagement of The Great Race, starting tomorrow at Pacific's Pantages Theater in Hollywood. Tickets on sale at Pantages box office or mutual agencies. Don't miss The Great Race. 20 minutes before 9, what's on your mind? Hollywood 1-9911.
Look into Lincoln Savings. It pays. Listen to actual Lincoln savers.
To an association like Lincoln and Savings, the interest itself earns interest, and literally builds on itself.
There is more interest being earned than there is in a bank or in the majority of the other savings and loan institutions.
They seem to sort of set the pace for the rest of them.
They are more concerned with you. They'll take more time with you when you come in. There's more interest on your savings, day to day.
At Lincoln, your savings earn interest from date of receipt, paid at quarter's end. Interest to date of withdrawal after 6 months. Interest compounded daily. Lincoln Savings, Los Angeles, Santa Ana, Sherman Oaks. Lincoln Savings has great interest for you.
Man, speak with forked tongue. Hollywood 1-9911. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, ma'am.
I've heard from time to time here and there that Southern California has a fault area, and that.
Yes, the Santa Ana Freeway of rush hour.
But seriously, I was very concerned about it because a friend of mine told me, a very good source, that within a week or so, the southern part of California was to collapse into the ocean. And I was wondering if you've heard it.
Yeah, that's known as San Francisco wishful thinking, dear. Let's put it this way. There's been everything from dire predictions by all sorts of geologists to forecasting by such people as Jean Dixon, the lady who foresaw the death of the late president. Ma'am, I think, first of all, let's take Jean Dixon. She came on the program and said that she'd been misunderstood. She believes there will be an eruption of some sort, possibly a catastrophic earthquake somewhere on the west coast of the USA sometime between July 1965 and July of 1966. But she did not specify that there will be disaster amongst the populace. She only said in her vision that there would be a large rumbling of some sort. Now, there's a man called Chan Thomas who was on the Arthur Godfrey show a few days ago.
Yes, his book, Adam and Eve, I was going to send in for that. That's another thing that made me wonder about it.
Well, we're going to speak with Chan on the program as soon as we possibly can. We hope to have him this evening, but I doubt whether that's going to be possible now. But in answer to your question about whether Southern California during the next week will collapse and fall away, I promise you it won't. However, if it does, you won't be able to come back to me and say, see, you were wrong. If it doesn't, you'll be able to say, see, Michael's right for a change. Ma'am, this won't happen. We are parts of California on different faults, the basic one or the main one being the St. Andreas fault. And I would say that particular one misses the Los Angeles area almost entirely. But if you are concerned, what you might do is put a call through to any of the local seismological departments, spelled seisma with a logical on the end, at UCLA or USC.
I see.
And don't worry about it.
All right. Thank you very much. I enjoy your program very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Because the society that crumbles together, 16 minutes before 9 o'clock, Hollywood 1-9911, Michael Jackson on KNX.
Smoother power,
better long-run mileage, clean carburetor.
If your Richfield station were a supermarket, every time you powered up with Richfield Boron, you'd get a basket full of benefits. And when they added things up, you'd hear the best part.
Richfield Boron costs no more.
So pull in and power up. Richfield Boron, the finest premium, costs no more.
The Motor Car Dealers Association points out a life-saving fact. You'll be 5 times safer in your automobile with seat belts. Take this tip from your new car dealer. Have seat belts installed in your car now. Statistics prove it's easier to tie her down. What? Statistics prove that seat belts are the only belts to have for the road. That's ridiculous. Hollywood 19911.
A wiener is a wiener is a wiener.
That's what you thought till you tried.
A wiener by Rath, what a difference.
It's a weenier wiener inside.
Bursting with tender, juicy meat.
Right from the country where meat's real meat.
A wiener by Rath is the wiener complete.
Can't think of nothing I'd rather eat.
A wiener by Rath, what a difference. It's a weenier wiener inside.
It's true, Raff sliced meats are better than ever because they're bigger than ever. Honest-to-goodness sandwich size. And Raff's new Sea-All package lets you taste with your eyes right there at the counter. Closes tight between servings, too. Protects Rath's fresh delicatessen flavor to the very last slice. That's Rath, R-A-T-H, Rath meats, in the new Sea-All package.
A wiener by Rath, what a difference. It's a weenier wiener inside.
Come alive, you're in the Pepsi generation.
These are the good times of a new generation, and the drink that helps the good times roll is Pepsi-Cola. Clean and quenching, cold and bold, straight through your thirst. There's more spark, more spring, more of everything with Pepsi, official drink of today's generation.
Come alive, you're in the Pepsi generation.
I don't know why, but it comes to mind now. An advertisement I saw in the London Tube, the Tube being the British word for subway, and it said 75% of all clergymen take the Times, and someone had scrawled underneath, the other 25% pay for it. Hollywood 19911.